Hello everyone and welcome to Pitskill.io Porsche 935 and BMW M2 Multiclass, sponsored by SimQuips. And I'm your host Roy Waller, and we are here in Monza for the 7th round of our series as our Porsche 935s take to the track, and Balazs here is going extremely sideways through the second chicane. And while our 935 drivers are on their outlap, let's have a look at the standings in this class, where we have Rhys Tattersall leading the way on 440 points, ahead of Matthew Parry on 390 and Ben Lopard on 384. Balazs hit the driver we're watching right now in P4 with 376 points, and they're followed by Jeremy Thomas, Chris Wright, Thomas Perello, Felenes Nitro, Stupa Skapas and John Sawyer. As these 935s make short work of this Monza circuit, we will go on board with Fahit. As just about staying on the track surface is Balazs, and quite wayward looking run down to the start finish line for our first flying lap of the session. Into turn one, heavy braking zone. These cars not with the best brakes and not with the best turning, so of course it's going to make the chicanes here at Monza especially tricky for these cars. And first time noticing that these cars have a wooden gear shifter in the centre. Somewhat retro looking, as Balazs really getting that car all over the place. I don't think this is going to be an especially rapid lap from our first driver out on circuit, as he's working the wheel, just about keeping the car within the track limits. We head into the second of the Lesmos, and again running it out wide, just about staying in track limits, looking a little bit tidier out of that second exit as we run down towards the Ascari chicane. How much curb are they going to take in these 935s? Whole lot of curb there for Fahit as he's sideways again on the exit of Ascari. Still looking like this is a valid lap, but well, we'll see from the times the other drivers put on, but I'm not especially sure this will be a rapid lap with the amount of sideways action we have been seeing, as catching another snap. This way here runs it down towards the line. And it was a 149.2 for Fahit, which is swiftly beaten by Thomas Perello with 147.9 and Matthew Parry with a 147.430, setting our pace early in the session, showing that wayward lap for Fahit, 1.7 seconds off the pace. Plenty of time to find, and I think we could see all throughout the lap where he can find it. It's the corners. That's where he's losing the time. As Thomas Perello seems to have invalidated his current lap, not on an especially quick one this tour of the circuit. There's not many 935s out there this evening, as Thomas Perello leaving the racing circuit yet again, trying to find the limits of grip out there. And again, Perello off in the background as Fahit running down towards Ascari for the second time. Still not finding a huge amount of time on this second lap. Looking somewhat smoother through Ascari. As he exits out, it's not looking quicker, must be said. At the times, currently matching his previous lap time, but someone who is finding a bit of pace, Jeremy Thomas, getting a little bit of a snap on the exit of Ascari. This is going to cost him all the way down towards Parabolica. There's the break into the Parabolica, the Curva Parabolica, also known as the Curva Anthony Noakes. And that's not a great end to what was looking like a pretty rapid lap there for Thomas. As our series leader, Reece Tattersall, takes to the circuit. On his outlap at the moment. We'll go on board and let Reece take us on a tour of this Monza circuit. It's a 1:47.430 to beat. Currently the pace set by Matthew Parry, who heads our timings for this session. And into the first one. I expect this to be tidy from Tattersall, driver we've seen at the top so many races this season. And through the second chicane, again very, very tidy from Reece Tattersall. Sector 1 time is up, and it's not quite as good as we have seen from Matthew Parry. Come down towards Ascari. And with 2 minutes still on the board, Reece Tattersall will get another run this, and he's going to need it because this is an invalidated lap, I do believe. That exit from Ascari not going the way he would have wanted. As we exit the final corner, we run towards the line. Reece Tattersall opting to take the short line, so perhaps that does mean he is on a valid lap, and he is. So 1:47.967, half a tenth off of Thomas Pirello, and half a second off of our current provisional pole sitter Matthew Parry. Still plenty of time to find for Tattersall. And this will be his final attempt at a flying lap. As we don't have many Porsches out on track. And John Sawyer trying to find some time, as is Felina's Nitro. Nitro just 2/10 down on Sawyer at the moment. It's just one corner to go. And they find a little bit of pace needed to get off the bottom of Porsche class. As they round the final corner, cross the line, it is up to P8 for Nitro, but John Sawyer not far behind now, coming out of the final corner. Will, I think, leapfrog back ahead of Nitro, and they do. Now drivers within that 2 seconds to our pace setter, Matthew Parry. As Reece Tattersall finding a couple of tenths on this lap, but it's not enough at the moment to challenge for that pole position. And with just the one corner left to round, will be a challenge to the time set by Thomas Pirello, but Matthew Parry safe in P1 for now. Doesn't look like anyone behind is improving enough. Jeremy Thomas finding a little bit of extra pace, actually just behind Matthew Perry, who we will keep an eye on for now, who is on a real flyer here. The driver currently with 3/10 clear of the rest of the field is finding more and more pace. We come down towards the curve of Parabolica again. Getting a little bit of a slipstream there off of Pirello ahead. Every little helps as Matthew Parry guns it to the line, losing a little bit of time in the third sector. Comparison to his best, but does clock in a 1:47.3. Sees him comfortably taking pole position. As we aim to find who is that car at the front of the BMW train. It is Andre Thierry, who will be taking us on the first tour in the TCX. As we take a look at, it is Jan Letalo in the M2 class who is leading the way ahead of Wojtek Svoboda and Jakub Borovic. Then have Lennon Bromfield, Anthony Vitchpel, Jules Flint, Ato Kalaskan, Marco Lorenzon, Christopher Elberg and Michael Ominski rounding out our top 10. As we go on board with BMW of the area as we head through the first of the chicanes. And these M2s with not quite the pull you get from Porsche 935. Losing a lot of time on the straight should make this somewhat more comfortable time for the Porsches when it comes to lapping. I imagine will start happening fairly soon into this race. The long run down towards Ascari, using plenty of that apex curb through both directions of turn through the Ascari chicane. These BMW M2s don't really care too much about curbs and climb all over them all day long. Just one corner to go for Thierry before we see what will be a somewhat representative time on the board. There we do see the M2s get faster and faster throughout the session as they get some heat into those tyres. Not that many corners to generate here at Monza. As we have a 2:3.392 for Thierry. A full 16 seconds off the pace at the moment. Oh, sorry, 16 seconds off the Porsche pace, I should say. Definitely on pace for his own class. As we have time still to be set by our series leader, Gilatalo, as it was one of the double yellow motorsport cars, hopping over the second part of Primo Variante. See more and more times coming up on the board, none yet challenging our provisional pole sitter. 4/10 clear of the rest of the field. As Gilatalo through the Lesmos. You can make just within track limits. We have Kalaskan in P2 and Chappelle in P3 at the moment. With going somewhat off onto the in the background. Giuliano throws it through the Ascari chicane. A slight correction through the second part of the corner, but looks tidy enough as we've got a car off the circuit on the left as we run down the long straight towards the Parabolica. Plenty of time to relax for these M2 drivers as they drive between the corners. Pull out the paper and read an article between corners, such as the pace in a straight line of these M2s, as Giuliano putting it in P2 for now. If he gets out of the pits, we'll have time for one more flyer. It's just like Giuliano having to leave the session. I hope that is not going to cause problems for the race. As we've got now most of our drivers with a time on the board, as Christopher Elberg currently sitting down on a 205.8, but finding plenty of time around this final corner. And towards the line we go, and it is a 204.692. There's a more competitive time there from Elberg, and not too far off of Poda ahead. But still plenty to strive for in these final minutes of our qualifying session. As P2 in the championship is Boda, currently without a time on the board. I think just having started, or just finishing their outlap, will now head on to a flying lap. Oh no, sorry, that was their first flying lap, and it is a 205.3. So nothing to write home about for Svoboda, and they need to find plenty of time on what will be their one competitive flying lap of this Monza circuit, and already missing the apex at turn 1. Chappelle looking to improve in time. Don't think this will improve them in position. As they cross the line at 203.297. 2.5 tenths off of our provisional pole sitter. Chappelle having to abandon the final attempt of a flying lap, being held up, I think, that by Marco Lorenzon? No, not Lorenzon. Another car that looks like Lorenzon. Chappelle has abandoned his attempt of taking pole position, so looking like it will be Thierry ahead of Chappelle, unless we see the return of Giuliano before the end of the session. As Rostock Svoboda with just one corner left to go, finding plenty of time on this lap. Needs to find a lot of time in the final corner. Should be enough time for one more fly. I don't think it's going to take them 20 odd seconds to get around Parabolica. The yellow flags out for a car on track. As Bodo crosses the line and Giuliano returns to the session. Now back in the pit lane, sitting in P3. We have Atakalaskan currently on an improving lap. Does need to find 3.5 tenths. Jump further up the order, but is doing well on this lap. Just one more corner to exit. This is going to be close as they come towards the line, and it's just 0.06 of a second off of P3 for Kalaskan. As James Matchman of Double Yellow Motorsport has the potential to jump ahead of Burkout. Just 0.05 of a second separate these two drivers. Also seeing a solid lap coming out from Marco Lorenzo. Keep our attention with Matchman as he rounds the final corner. Could be a jump ahead of Burkout, though looking like pace going away from Matchman as he exits the final corner. So don't think we're going to be seeing an improvement from the Double Yellow Motorsport driver. As next across the line would be Zaboda, but I think this is an invalidated lap, unfortunately. I won't see them jumping up the order. But next across the line will be Zaboda, and just about keeping it within track limits. And I think with that exit, the final corner is going to see the time slip away from them, and it does. And we will turn very shortly for tonight's race. Oh, welcome back everyone as we line up on the grid to get ready for tonight's race. Just enough time just to run you through the starting order for tonight's event. And it is Matthew Parry who will be starting this race from pole position. He'll be starting alongside our championship leader Reese Tattersall. In P3 we have Ben Lopard, with Thomas Perello starting in P4. Jeremy Thomas is in P5, with Kristupas Skapas starting this race from P6. Vlad Shveh in the sparkly pink unicorn car is in P7, with John Sawyer starting alongside them in P8. Glenez Nitro will be starting this race from P9, and it was the final of our Porsche runners with just a 9-strong grid for tonight's race. But the BMWs are more than making up for that fact, as we do have 21 of them on circuit with us tonight, and it is Andre Thierry who will be starting at the head of the BMW M2 class, with Anthony Vitchapelle starting P2 in class. Championship leader Jan Gilatalo is in P3, with Atos Kalaskan in the Splatoon livery car in P4. Bruce Burkout is in P5 and is P14 overall, with James Matchman in P15. Eric Berg starting in P16 in the 111 car will be starting ahead of P2 in the championship. Vostok Zaboda. Peter Jorgensen is in P18, with Christopher Elberg starting in P19. Martin Coy is in P20, with Victor Poda in P21. In P22 we have got Paul Cook with Slovak Klinger in P23. P24 is Marco Lorenzon with Bolden Ballant in P25. P26 is Mikhail Minsky with Achilles Andromedas in P27. Ben Beams is in P28, running that same livery as Marco Lorenzon. And Darren McAllister is in P29. And then last but very much not least, we have got Jakub Borovic starting down in P30 overall, and that is P21 in the BMW M2 class. So we return back to the front of our field as Matthew Parry and Rhys Tattersall. Okay, leisurely stroll down towards the Ascari chicane. Next time they approach this corner will be at race speed, and let's just hope they'll be side by side with a little bit of action running into our first lap. At the moment, Rhys Tattersall with a healthy lead in the championship. Matthew Parry will be hoping to hold on to this qualifying advantage through this race. Try and claw his way back towards Tattersall with just 3 races remaining after this one. Round out the rest of the season. And Ben Lopard starting down in P4 for tonight's race. Sorry, P3 for tonight's race. I don't know why my timing tower is showing Balazs here in P3. It'll certainly be Ben Lopard in P4. So P3, and he is P3 in the championship as well. So our championship contenders all well placed for the start of tonight's race. And the same cannot be said about championship for the M2s, as Latalo in P3 and Svoboda we're down P17 overall. But as we wait for the green flag as our grid of cars comes out of the final corner onto the long run towards turn 1, and it's a great start from Matthew Parry, who holds position. We head down towards the first corner. Rhys Tattersall well alongside. We head into turn 1. They get heavy on the brakes. Ben Lopard also looking up the inside, not the room there to try and make any sort of challenge, as Pirello and Lopard going side by side through the first chicane and exiting side by side as they run down through the Curva Grande. And Pirello having to slot back in behind, but it was a good attempt there around the outside, but longer distance travelled. And then losing out there is Balazs having to skip over the second of the chicanes. And as we look down into the BMWs, Ilatalo has got himself up into P2, with Thierry now dropping down to P4. That's our race driver who started in class pole position, currently down to P4, battling with Burkout. Into the second of the Lesmos, does manage to get himself ahead, but Jan Ilatalo up into P2 and going side by side with Anthony Vichapel as we head down towards Ascari, driver who only managed to make 1 lap in the qualifying session. It may have been plagued by technical difficulties. Has made the lunge up into P1 on the first lap as they both dip wheels out into the gravel, but it is Jan Ilatalo up into P1 as the whole pack BMWs snake their way down towards second lap. And Matthew Parry with a strong lead in the Porsche class leads ahead of Rhys Tattersall, who finds himself under pressure from Ben Lopard heading into first chicane. Lopard and Pirello keeping with this lead pack. 4 cars. Then have a little bit of a gap back to Balazs Fahey. And with John Sawyer and Nitro battling behind Jeremy Thomas. It's the battle over P7 in the race. As things start to spread out a little bit in the Porsche field. Same cannot be said for the M2s, who seem to be going 2 by 2 around the Curva Grande. There's a little bit of contact there between Coy and Matra, as Coy jumping over the chicane. I think, yeah, will hand those positions back. We'll get him back underway as Ballant having a look up the inside. But Martin Coy playing fair there, knows they gain an advantage from skipping the chicane. Gets themselves back underway. As back up. The battle over the final podium position in the Porsche 935 class. There's Ben Lopard. There's Thomas Pirello. I believe these two are good friends. Seen them running similar liveries in seasons before as they come down towards turns 1 and 2. This third lap of the race as Matthew Parry has pulled a 1.1 second gap ahead of Rhys Tattersall. This gap between Tattersall and Lopard now sitting at 1.9 seconds. As you see, Atakalaskan has lost a number of positions. So what has happened here? Oh, running very deep into the Curva Parabolica, and that explains the copious numbers of positions lost for Kalaskan, and will be a painful run as they lose 2 more positions to Coy and Ballant, as I think that is Marco Lorenzon who goes skipping over the first chicane. As we have battling between Skapas and Fahey, going down towards Ascari, and it's Super Skapas up into P5. Has made the position on Balazs Fahey. Will he be able to hold on to it as Fahey going out wide onto the gravel. And back underway they go. There's plenty of close battling in this midfield in the M2 class. As this group being led by Ballant, we have Kalaskan, Borovic, Klinger, Poda, Arminsky, all contesting this P17 at the moment. As we have lost a car from the race. That might be Christopher Elberg, who has disappeared, so not sure what has happened to their car. Check back in with the battle for P3. Thomas Pirello within half a second of Ben Lopard as we head into the Lesmos. And now just half a lap, I think, from our Porsches catching the back of the BMW field. As Oscar and Klinger nose to tail as we come down towards T1. And also have Ballant and Poda side by side. Is Ballant going to look for a move up the inside of Kalaskan? Nope, ends up having to back out over both. Kalaskan jumping over the second part of the chicane. Thomas Pirello dropping down the order. So what happened here? For the second part of the Scari, he hits the curb, and that is a heavy clout into the wall. You can see how misaligned that front left tyre is, and well, let's see how this car needs to be driven. I was looking at there's heavy damage there for Thomas Pirello as he unwinds the steering, and well, it seems like the wheel is at least still straight for him there. There's not the suspension damage I was expecting to see, but Thomas Pirello in for an early pit stop. And so that has somewhat neutered the battle for P3. Remains to be seen where Thomas Pirello will reappear into the field. But we have another battle brewing here between Fahir and Thomas. It's a battle over P5, and the gap currently sitting at 0.3 seconds. Another battle that does seem to be hotting up. There's a sideways moment there for Thomas into the dirt. Just seemed to catch the end of that one, but we have got a battle for the lead in this race. Rhys Tattersall just 0.3 seconds behind Matthew Parry. We head again through the Ascari chicane and on that long run down towards Curva Parabolica. And what was looking like a strong, commanding lead for Matthew Parry has disappeared as Parry into the pits for an early stop. Have to see where this will bring Parry out as they go for their pits. Rhys Tattersall now not far off the back of the Porsche field. Will, I imagine, catch them before the end of the lap. You see the first of the BMWs just ahead. As we go on board with Rhys Tattersall to get a in-car view of quite how tricky this multi-class racing can be. As the first of the BMWs gets well out of the way there for Tattersall. Even with the indicators on, can be somewhat scary to try and predict the movements of the slower class. As Tattersall slots up to the inside of yet another car. And having to catch a big old slide. And as we now come into the main bulk of the field, and this might have worked out okay for Tattersall. Hasn't encountered too much of the backmarker BMW traffic, but will be held up here through the Curva Parabolica. Can't just throttle out, does make it past the first of them. There's a big slide there, catches it, and Rhys Tattersall into the pits. We see the end of his in-lap. So we'll keep an eye and see where does he emerge in relation to Matthew Parry. Parry, who is now back out on circuit and in a traffic-free section of the racetrack. There's just the 113 and the 21 car ahead of him. Should be able to get around the rest of this lap and get out ahead of Rhys Tattersall. Balazs Fahir also in the pits this lap around. And it was 28 seconds stop for Matthew Parry. So unsurprisingly, with how early that pit stop was, not taking tyres. Not going to see all that much of an advantage, having only run 10 minutes. As Matthew Parry now onto the pit straight. And we are seeing movement as Rhys Tattersall emerges back out onto the circuit. And Matthew Parry flies by easily back into the lead of this race. The gap now at 0.8 seconds. And it is race on again between our lead two, and with just under 18 minutes of this race remaining, I think we have got plenty of action left ahead of us for the win of this race. As we take a look at some of the battles further down the field, no less important as Michael Minsky going very deep into the curve of Parabolica, and won't be troubling Blint too much with that wide line, as Blint diving into pit road, joining a queue of cars entering into the pit lane, the end of this lap. And well, the driver who was running last in the Porsche 935 class finds themselves now in the race lead for Lennis Nitro. Last of the drivers in the Porsches who opt to take their mandatory pit stop and enjoy at least the next lap in the lead of this race. As Thomas Pirello, currently running down in P19, was stopped for 1 minute and 33 seconds. That is going to be quite painful in regards to the rest of the race, as we consider the rest of the drivers who have stopped their mandatory pit stop for only 27 seconds. So Pirello with a lot of work to do to first of all get themselves back out of the BMW traffic, with already another 9 cars ahead of them. Statusol has got past. Okay, I did not see when that one happened, so we are going to go back a long while and see if we can see where this has happened. So around the outside of the curve of Parabolica goes Reese Tattersall. It's a good run on to the start finish straight, and this is going to be a great overspeed here for Reese Tattersall as they head down towards the first corner. Still could have been an opportunity here for Matthew Parry holding the inside line, but Reese Tattersall deep on the brakes, missing the first apex. Matthew Parry had a go at trying to hold it around the outside, but in the end Reese Tattersall taking the position and up into P1 in this race. And that is a bit of a sketchy moment through the second chicane, but as we return to the live action, Reese Tattersall still holding the lead of this race over at 0.7 seconds over Matthew Parry, as Ben Lopard finds himself now under pressure from Gustavus Skapas, as Lopard looking like they opted to take new tyres during their pit stop. They're trying to pick their way past, I think that is Thierry, pole sitter in the BMW class, as Ben Lopard should now see the advantage of that new rubber that does have a 8-second gap ahead to Matthew Parry, and I think with only 13 minutes remaining and not that many corners, it must be said, I don't think there's quite enough left in it for Ben Lopard to go chasing after our top two in this race, as we have Blint and Jorgensen going side by side, heading into the second chicane. Jorgensen from the outside line through the first part of the chicane, holds position ahead of Ballant. We have Michael Minsky not far behind this battle as well. As Fellini's Nitro finally dives into the pit lane to take their mandatory pit stop, and that releases Reese Tattersall back into the lead of this, or I should say actually not back into the lead of this race, just into the lead of this race for the first time. We've had 2 laps of these two running behind the non-pitters as they emerge back into racing order. It is Reese Tattersall ahead of Matthew Perry. That gap now stretched out to 0.8 seconds. And Reese Tattersall looking comfortable at the moment. These two trading lap times. Still Matthew Perry with the fastest lap of this race. And I suspect it will stay this way. These cars definitely harder on their tyres as the stint goes on. Harder for them to keep replicating the lap time. As both Perry and Tattersall running slightly wide through the second of the Lesmos. As Thomas Pirello has finally released himself from the back of the front of the BMW field, and now finds himself just a meager 1 minute behind the P8 runner of Balazs Fahir. So it will just be a recovery run to the line, I suspect, for Thomas Pirello. Matthew Perry here, not giving up on this race. Was a solid move to take the lead by Reese Tattersall, but Matthew Perry keeping that gap fairly consistent. Did have 0.2 of a second to the advantage on that lap over Reese Tattersall. As they start another tour of this Monza circuit. We also have a battle over P6. As there's Nitro, having taken that late stop, merges in P6. Didn't opt to take tyres as well. The only drivers seeming to take tyres in the Porsche class are Ben Lopard and Jeremy Thomas. As John Sawyer looking for a way around the outside as they come through the curve of Grande. Did get a better exit out of the first chicane. Fellini's Nitro covering the middle of the track as they come into the second chicane, and Balazs Fahir closing in on this battle as well, just 1.2 seconds back at the moment. And if they keep battling like this, I'm sure Balazs Fahir will be closing in very, very shortly. Jet Swoboda up into P15 overall. This is P6 in class. Is having better race than they did qualifying, coming up 2 positions. As Jakub Borovic still opting not to pit yet, I think, having started from the back of the grid. Borovic just trying to use their pace as much as they can as they can slot back in closer to where they expect to be in the order, as finally Jakub Borovic opting to make their stop, and we'll see where they emerge back in the racing order. As John Sawyer still trying to close in on Fellini's Nitro. 0.4 seconds the gap at the moment. Balazs Fahir 1.3 seconds off of this battle as well. They head into the braking zone for turn 1. Sawyer having a look up the inside, trying to get in the mirrors of Nitro. I don't think there's any real prospect of a lunge there from Sawyer, but just wanting to try and get into the mind of Nitro. Get Nitro driving in his mirrors. Nitro now he can't just relax with the car in behind him, as again Nitro trying to cover the middle of the track, and it's a sloppy couple of corners for the pair of them, and this has opened the door to Balazs Fahir, who is diving himself up the inside of John Sawyer, and that is Fahir up into P6, so P7. And we'll now go on the attack of Felinez Nitro. So move well made there for Balazs Feher. And as they come down towards Cover Barricade again, it's now Balazs Feher who is on the attack. 7 minutes of this race remaining. I'm not sure if there was some sort of incident earlier on in the race for Feher. They do seem to be having to recover themselves back up the order. As this time, Balazs Feher well in the slipstream, pulls out as they head into turn 1. Has not managed to coax there's Nitro into defending clean air. And this battle will continue on. We also have battles in the BMW field as Burkout looking to the outside of Zaboda as we come down to Parabolica. Thomas Pirello, I think, also picking its way through this traffic in the background. Zaboda, the inside line through Parabolica. Will they be able to get themselves lined up on the throttle early enough? Burkout going to have a good run down the start finish line as Pirello gets himself clear of this battle. And actually looking like Borovic, who after having made their pit stop finds himself just behind this battle. It's the three of them coming down the start finish straight, and it is Burkout looking to the inside of Zaboda, has gone very, very deep into the corner. Will exit the chicane ahead, but should really be giving that position back, and I think might end up losing out to Borovic as well. And I think they're going to have to try and judge this one well to give the position to Zaboda without losing it to Borovic, and well, seems like weren't quite able to make that happen as Borovic now up the inside of Zaboda, and Burkout now completely side by side with Zaboda, and we have Martin Coy on the blinkers for a reason I do not know why, but they come now through the second of the Lesmos. That is Burkout up into P15 overall, and Borovic 2 positions gained in as many sectors. Battle hard fought and hard won there. Jakub Borovic now P5 in class. We'll turn our attention back to the front of our field as we head into the final 4 minutes of this race. Matthew Parry still trying to chase down Rhys Tattersall, having lost that lead about 5 minutes ago. Now needs to try and claw his position back. With still a considerable amount of traffic left to pass before the checkered flag is waved. Opportunities may present themselves towards the end of this race, as John Sawyer looking up the inside of Balazs Feher, and well, that was very much a case of 2 does not go into 1. We have another look at that one into Scari, and both turning in for an apex, and well, neither leaving each other much room. That was only really going to end one way. Yes. Now Porsche field heads down towards the second chicane. Rhys Tattersall inserting himself into this battle, and well, I was going to say, somehow still coming out alive. Matthew Parry losing considerably in that battle. But what has happened here to Svoboda as we come through? Oh, door-to-door contact between Coy and Svoboda. Svoboda around. Driver who was running well up until that point in the race. Oh, now just frustration kicking in as they get themselves running. But now 8 seconds off the back of Eric Berg and miles clear of the battle they were in. Also losing out there, Matthew Parry, who now with that gap sitting at 2 seconds, looking like an unassailable lead being held by Reece Tattersall. Matthew Parry gets himself all out of sorts through the Ascari chicane. Now that gap at 2.5 seconds with just under 2 minutes to run the rest of this race. Monza and Balazs head into the Ascari chicane again. This time they're not opting to go side by side as Balazs getting a very sideways moment on the exit of Ascari, and this could be a good opportunity for John Sawyer as they head down towards Parabolica. Balazs defending the inside. Leave it up to John Sawyer to try and just line up a better exit, and it looks like he's going to get it here. John Sawyer, able to get on the throttle earlier, should have a fantastic run into turn 1. Just got enough of his car ahead if he wants the sweep to defend. But John Sawyer has got now the option of going deep on the brakes. Decides not to take it. Slots back in behind as Balazs here. Going deep on the brakes and jumping over the chicane. As getting quite considerably in time there. I wonder if the game has handed out a time gain penalty there. Because that was definitely leaving the track and gaining an advantage. As BMWs dive out of the way of this battle, John Sawyer has got Balazs here under all sorts of pressure. As we are in, I think, what will be the perhaps the final lap of this race. Going to be close. Reece Tattersall at 10 seconds off. Should be the final lap as we now the clock hits 0 and we cross the line, and Reece Tattersall taking a comfortable win in the end over Matthew Parry. He had to work for it, but that challenge from Matthew Parry just dropping off towards the end as Ben Lopard takes P3. Lupa Scapas will take P4 with Jeremy Thomas taking P5. P6 will go to Felinez Nitro as he crosses the line. And Balazs here will take P7 ahead of John Sawyer in P8. As Jan Gilatalo has taken the win in the BMWs ahead of Andre Thierry, Anthony Victor Chappelle, James Matchman, Jakub Borovic, Martin Coy, Bruce Burkout, Wojciech Svoboda down in P8 in class at the end of this. P18 goes to Sven Klinger, and P10 in the BMW class goes to Bolden Ballant. Well, thank you very much.